founder and CEO of Bobbie LaPorte and Associates, to the virtual stage.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for including me. I hope that you can hear me and that you can see me. I'm in Lake Tahoe in Northern California, and we're having a storm. So I had some problems this morning with my power and Wi-Fi and slides and everything else. So anyway, we'll figure out our way through this. And thank you so much for inviting me this morning. So my talk is called Get Empowered to Crush Your Biggest 140.6 Challenge. So let's talk about that. So 140.6, that is the total number of human-powered miles in an Ironman triathlon. And I never thought that number would represent, what that number represents would become so important to me. And I hope by our short time together today, that you will understand as well and will be important for you. So this morning, I want to take you on a journey with me from being an overweight, inactive woman in my 50s to an endurance athlete and a 6-time Ironman finisher. And that was a transformational journey for me that changed how I approach both my life and specifically my work. And on that journey, I learned about perseverance, commitment, and resilience. I learned about my capabilities and vulnerabilities that helped me face tough challenges in my life. And I believe that my lessons learned can help you face the 140.6 challenges in your life as well. So what is a 140.6 challenge? Well, we all have them. And look, there's no doubt we're living in one of the most challenging times in recent memory across all the domains of our lives. Futurists tell us that we'll see more change in the next 2 years than we have in the last decade, which is really amazing. A scary thought, but also one of opportunity. But one thing is certain, we wake up each day in a new world where there's no control, no certainty of what's coming next or how to plan for tomorrow. And I know this feeling well, because when I train for an Ironman race, I never know what the trail will bring. So I've learned to embrace uncertainty. My question for you today is, how will you adapt to unrelenting uncertainty and change from a place of possibility, not one of resignation? So before I share with you my three keys for managing your 140.6 challenge, let me share with you what an Ironman is and then a personal story. So for those of you who may not be familiar, an Ironman is a long distance triathlon. It starts with a 2.4-mile open water swim, followed by a 112-mile bike ride, and then it finishes with a 26.2-mile run. Yep, a full marathon at the end. And let me tell you, it's a very long day. And so here's my personal story about my first Ironman. It was a gray day off the coast of Central California. I was about to wade into the cold and dark lake on the first leg of my special triathlon training weekend. I was assembled there at the lake with my teammates, coaches, and extended support team. We were getting ready to complete our half Ironman training race. This was a critical milestone in my training. Here was where all my preparation and sacrifices were supposed to come together to assess my readiness for a full Ironman race. Make no mistake, this was a test. I knew I had done the work and I had proved myself up to this point, but I was still full of self-doubt. I was afraid I wouldn't finish, that I would disappoint not only myself, but all the people who had supported me along the way. And I also knew that while the course was clearly laid out and I knew what the physical challenges would be, there would be uncertainty, mental and emotional challenges that I could not anticipate. So I stood at the edge of the lake, steeling myself to jump in and begin the 1.2-mile swim. And the swim leg of a triathlon has always been my weakness, my personal nemesis. I'm not a good swimmer. I struggle to swim in the open water, and I nearly always end up as one of the last athletes out of the water, exhausted and dreading the next leg of the race. So reluctantly, I got into the lake and I did my best to steer clear of the hundreds of arms and legs slashing through the water around me. But somehow, I got kicked in the face by a competitor and my goggles flew off, lost somewhere in the lake. Now what? I'm just about to start the swim. I can't see where I'm going. There's hundreds of bodies crowding around me, frantically pushing past. And I just thought, oh my God, what a start to my day. My first instinct was to just give up. I mean, how can I possibly swim more than a mile without goggles? It would be easy to quit and to say, it's just not my day. It's not meant to be. But I knew I could figure out a way through this to keep making progress, if slower than I'd like. So I think about the long day ahead and what my next move is going to be. I could swim with my head out of the water every other stroke. I could hope to catch up with a competitor who has an extra pair of goggles strapped to his or her head just for an occasion like this. All these deliberations take seconds, although it seems like years. And in the end, I made the choice to slow down, regroup, and make a plan, knowing that I might need to change it. And then I proceeded to swim with my head out of the water, but recognizing there were still many hours and opportunities to get to the finish line. And this is important. How I responded, the choices I made in that heat of the moment, created the conditions for my success down the road. And that is a lesson I took away from my Ironman racing. That in a world of uncertainty, you can't plan, but you can prepare. And so that brings me to the first of the 3 keys I want to share with you about managing your 1.46 challenge. And the first key is support. Now, we all need support, although as leaders, we are often reluctant, right, to ask for support. We see it as a sign of weakness. We believe that our teams rely on us for answers, to solve problems, right? That's how we see our value as a leader. And that may have worked in a certain world. But in an uncertain world, where no leader or any one person has all the answers, we need support. And one of the new requirements of strategic leadership in an uncertain world is our willingness to be vulnerable, to say we don't know, to ask for help. And in that way, we're building capacity in our teams and ourselves, and we also increase the possibilities in front of us. So, are you afraid to ask for help? When you say to someone, "Can you help me?" that instantly recognizes that person's skills and values. It conveys respect and appreciation. And that's reason enough to ask. My second key for facing today's challenges for leaders is the word control. Now, when change is constant, like it is, it often feels you have no control. I mean, let's face it, you can't see what's around the corner, never mind plan for next week or the next quarter. And on race day, I'm bound to be thrown a curveball, as in the story I shared of my goggles being kicked off. We all get hit by curveballs like this. And when that happens, we can't worry about what might happen next or what might happen tomorrow. All we can focus on is what's right in front of us. And that's what the personal journey looks and feels like for today's leaders in an uncertain world. In the past, we relied on solutions to our most challenging problems that were tried and true. Solutions that provided an immediate fix that would move us along to the goal or destination in front of us. But in today's world, that is no longer true. We can't clearly chart a path to our destination. We are literally staring into the unknown. The journey, taking one step at a time, is really all we have. So we need to replace our desire for control with the acknowledgement that we all have personal agency and the capacity to act. So our day-to-day journey, the starts and stops, they're just part of our discovery. They're not failures, but they're starting points for your best next move. And then finally, it brings me to my third key for facing today's challenges, and that is the word community. So back to my Ironman racing. While triathlon is a solo sport, preparation for a race is far from it. There are dozens of people, coaches, volunteers, support crew, not to mention family and friends who are part of the journey. And believe me, it takes a small army to get me across the finish line. Being a leader today can be tremendously lonely if you let it. And we know that in times of anxiety and uncertainty, our natural inclination is to withdraw. Our desire to bring things under control can lead to a go-it-alone mentality. But that's exactly the opposite of what you need to do right now. In this uncertain world, our work is increasingly complex, and that calls for increased collaboration, tapping into the skills of others across the enterprise. And with the pace of internal change and constant reorgs, the network of supporters and advocates that you've come to count on can change in an instant. So you need to make the time and set the intention to build the relational resources you need to lead successfully in uncertain times. Look, there's no question uncertainty can put us on the defense, avoiding risk instead of embracing opportunity. Uncertainty can knock you off your game and lead to exhaustion and resignation. You give in, and then you give up. But I believe uncertainty can also be a gift because it releases you to look at challenges from a place of what can be, not a place of resignation. Through my Ironman training, I learned how to find the what is possible in any situation. And this transformational experience allows me now to help others see what is possible for them. So here is my challenge to you. When you're faced with the unrelenting uncertainty of the world in which we live, when you are in the line of fire, how can you live life from a possibilities perspective? The Ironman motto is anything is possible. And I believe that is true if you ask for support, if you acknowledge what you can and can't control and you use your personal agency to act, and if you build a community who will encourage and inspire you to meet your 140.6 challenge. We've covered a lot today in this session. One of the things that I wanted to, before we wrap up, one of the things that I wanted to share with you is that I'm interested in interviewing people from my I Got This part of my book launch campaign. So if any of you have a significant challenge that you faced recently, or a curveball I like to call it, and you wanted to help me understand how you handled that, how you managed it, I'd love for you to email me and I can interview you, and I'd love to feature you in the campaigns that I'm using to launch my book. So anyway, I survived the storm, the heater's back on, the power is back up. So thank you so much for listening this morning. Thank you, Sheila and Erica and everyone for having me. And I hope this was helpful to you and that you'll leave with a couple of ideas today that you can put into practice.